Welcome to episode 27 of Rebels Without a Pod, the show that dares ask the question, what? My name is
Hey,
John.
that's a carryover joke.
We're a show. We got to give like our regular listeners like a little bit of serialization.
I like how we got to give. We just got to give, Eric. You know what? I'm done. I'll back off.
Giving.
Keep giving.
Free. My name is John, and the two hosts joining me tonight, Andy, who does our artwork and graphic design.
Welcome.
And Pod Daddy Eric, a.k.a. Duddy Ford in beautiful downtown Worcester.
How's it going, everybody? I just keep giving, John. Mm-hmm. I just don't know what I'm giving him.
It's just give whatever you can.
It just comes out of me. I can't explain it.
This is what happens. Naveen's gone. The entire thing just goes to hell, like right off the bat. Our co-host Naveen has some obligations on Daddington Island for like this portion of the record,
that's cute.
Portion of the record, but he will hopefully be joining us later. No movie this week. Instead, we're debuting Rebels Yell, a 4-way review format where each host picks a musical album for the group to listen to and discuss. On deck this evening is Act 4, Rebirth and Reprisal by the Deer Hunter, There Is No Enemy by Built to Spill, and Let It Bleed by the Rolling Stones. Hopefully, if Naveen's able to kind of rejoin for like the remainder of the program, we'll also be covering Ugetsu by Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. But first, gentlemen, any announcements, corrections, coercions, anything you want to shout out or share?
I have something. So I was listening to the Conan podcast yesterday or the day before that, and he had on the actor / writer / whatever else, Zach Woods, who was from The Office and also from Silicon Valley and a bunch of other stuff as well. He's a really tall guy. And he's got a new-ish, I guess, show that is streaming on Peacock right now called In the Know. And it's a stop-motion animation show. The stop-motion is actually done by the same folks that did the stop-motion for the Guillermo del Toro Pinocchio movie that just came out. Yeah. And so I should say, it's amazing. Like the stop motion is incredible. But the premise of the show is it's about this sort of like PBS esque radio talk show where the host, who is played by Zach Woods, he's one of those guys that sort of just loves to hear the sound of his own voice. He thinks everything he says is super profound, but he also is billed as I think it's like the quote third most successful radio host on the station. So he's not even like the number one or number two. He's like the guy that's in third. And the way that Zach,
in his own mind, though.
Yeah, and the way that Zach Woods said it is he says he's the third, which means he's probably the fourth. And it's all just sort of about like hyper political correctness, using all of the correct terminology of the day, not
so it's kind of riffing on sort of like kind of just NPR, sort of New Yorker,
Lib TV,
Lower Manhattan.
Exactly. And so I dove in and I watched the first episode. They're short. They're 20 whatever minutes long. I dove in, watched the first episode, thought it was really, really, really funny. Went to watch the second episode and realized that Peacock has it behind a paywall, which I don't pay for Peacock. I have other streaming services. I don't pay for Peacock. So now I've seen the first one and I can't see any of the other ones. And I refuse to pay for Peacock for one fucking show. So, so here we are. But if anybody out there happens to have Peacock that they pay for, I would say give it a shot. I like the first one. Second one, maybe it's good. I don't know.
I mean, Andy, I'll be honest. I have Peacock.
Yeah.
But on principle alone, I'm not going to watch the show.
I know how you are with recommendations. So
I'll watch the first one, though.
Yeah. What I meant to say, Eric, it's terrible, and you should definitely not watch it.
Andy, the only way you're going to talk him into this particular show is by starting like a spin-off pod with him.
Hold on.
It's really the only.
I'm going to mark this in my Google Calendar, and I'm going to set it to 2028. And yeah,
there's no possibility.
I'll let you know how it goes.
Calendar is.
The
No
great
way.
thing is you not watching it doesn't impact me really at all. So you do whatever you got to do, my friend.
I'll do me.
Okay, yeah, you do you, boo.
I'll do myself.
All right. So other thing I wanted to bring up top, this was sort of briefly promised at the end of last episode. I have my Guar concert report.
Yeah.
I fill you guys in on, and I'll sort of be brief about it. But what a goddamn great show that ended up being. I mean, that just what happened kind of right at the start. Lights go down, stage lights come up. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump walk out in these kind of just really sort of just disgusting sort of kind of paper mache kind of malled together kind of like prosthetic puppet costumes, and there's a few just sort of lame it's just like a few just kind of lame kind of political jokes that sort of get kind of tossed back and forth, and like the audience is kind of booing both of them, and then the announcer goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is exciting. A dark horse third party candidate has just entered the American presidential election from a frozen planetoid on the galactic outer rim. Please welcome to American politics, Guar." And Guar comes out stage. The lead singer's got a huge battle axe. He chops off the front of Trump's torso. Blood starts spraying over the audience. Kamala turns around, hikes her skirt up, and starts taking like a piss on everybody from the front row. And then the show just completely just rocks out from there.
So is that like the fourth assassination attempt? Or was that one successful?
It's we'll have to see sort of what cartilage will sort of magically kind of grow back like in the coming.
You have to so you have to let me know, was Mark there? Did you see Mark from Empire Records?
I
just want to know.
A minor quibble like I'll have with the show is that I'm so tired of politics. I'm so tired of political humor in any kind of fashion, any kind of straight up. It just I don't care. I don't want to think about it. And it was their kind of sketches that they would do between songs would be bringing out progressively crazier and crazier presidents to basically just get mutilated by Guar. So it went from like the two of them to Obama to George W. like in a big cowboy hat. Abraham Lincoln came out at one point. They worked their way eventually up to Adolf Hitler, who kind of got wheeled out like on a gurney. And after they chopped his head off,
foreign presidents.
They started playing like the song from like Empire Records. All that's kind of fun, but I just remember kind of like that scene for the movie of just like I don't want to even kind of think about contemporary shit. Just give me a giant sandworm that you're going to throw Ethan Embry into. You know, just give me more weird sci-fi shit rather than trying to be the Daily Show. Yeah,
I mean, yeah. That would have been amazing to watch. I mean, it sounds great though. What you did explain, I'm going to see if I can find this online because it sounds fucking awesome and probably better than anything you can find on the news or on YouTube or whatever about what's going on. I mean,
like we don't have enough in the States. This is the thing I truly miss about Japan is just crazy, weirdo concept, costume based rock and heavy metal shows like this. This Japanese like bands do like a lot more kind of frequently. They not only was the stage and like the light show amazing, the in between sketches were kind of funny, but biggest thing I can kind of say about the Guar show is they played some just electric heavy metal songs like the entire time. Like I was amazed how crowded the venue was. I was amazed by like the number of young people like at the show. Like a lot of the audience were just kind of people like in their 20s. Like a lot of there was like a 10-year-old kid there with his cool ass parents.
Of course he was.
And they're all wearing. Sorry, say again.
I was gonna say, of course he was. Like when Metallica came to Boston, same thing. There was so many kids in the audience because they have awesome parents that they're like, you got to hear this while they're still touring and
right.
Take advantage of while you can.
Well, like the thing with like the families I saw is that almost everybody was wearing like these white T-shirts, and the big thing of the show is everything that kind of gets sprayed on the audience can be used as kind of like t-shirt tie-dye. So like people sort of go in and they'll get their shirts soaked in sort of kind of just Trump entrails and Kamala piss and like whatever else, and they'll frame the shirts. Those will be kind of like their big memento for the show that they actually get.
Are you serious?
Yeah, not making any of this up. It was amazing.
So John, here's the question. Guar comes to Boston, I want to say next month or something like that, but they're playing on a Tuesday night.
Worth it.
Do I go?
Yes. Not even a question. Both of you should go together. Report back.
I was gonna say, Andy, are you like third party inviting me? How's this working?
I might be. I have to look at how much the tickets are and exactly what night it is, but maybe I am, because I have always wanted to see Guar. I will tell you, I don't know any of their music except for probably the one song.
Need to.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know any of their music, but it sounds like a great show.
It sounds amazing though. So
right. If the two of you went to the show and were not smiling ear to ear like the entire time, I would be truly shocked.
Covered in blood and piss and feces.
Is there a way to not get covered in blood? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, it's kind of like it's sort of SeaWorld rules. Like if you stand far enough back or to the side. Although I've got these. Yeah.
Evil Dead the musical. Remember, we went to see that in Canada. It's the same thing. If you go see that, you will get doused with blood. If you're in like the front
definitely a
2 or 3 rows, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Right. I kind of stood off to the side. I just realized kind of early today I have like a brand new pair of Asics that have kind of like a very kind of just sort of tall, sort of kind of white sole to them, and I just realized earlier today that the Asics were still kind of covered in guar bile, but it's
nice.
It's the kind of thing that you can dodge around if you want to, but having kind of been to one of these things at this point, I'm like, hey, part of the fun.
I feel like there should be like they've coined a word by this point for like anything that's some kind of like guar, like feces, or guar, like jizz, or whatever. It's like guarsum or something. Like you go to the show and you're covered in guarsum.
Right. They have like these big kind of cannons that these two guys, the two roadies will sort of wheel out at one point that kind of look like the Gatling gun from like the start of Predator.
Okay.
They call them they're basically hoses they spray like the audience with, and it just as they're doing that, like apparently the two Gatling guns are called the bile drivers. Which
nice.
Yeah.
God damn.
Chris, he goes up, he's like, "Here come the bile drivers." I'm like, this is music.
Yeah. Yep. That's perfect.
Their art by this point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So many shows, so many years they've been doing this.
They were selling the Guar board game outside, one of like the biggest that I've had in like 2024. It's not picking.
You didn't buy it?
All the Kickstarter expansions? Come on, John.
I don't have an addiction, guys. Fucking Gotham City Chronicles. Okay.
Comes with a Mark miniature that you can paint. Ooh.
He dropped right into like the sandworm.
Yeah, with and without his axe.
All right, so let's get to our album reviews. So we'll start with Andy. Andy for us picked this album by the Deer Hunter called Act 4, Rebirth and Reprisal. This is the 6th studio album by the Providence progressive rock band, released in 2015. This is the 4th album in a 6-part series conceived by frontman Casey Crescenzo, following the story of a boy known as the Deer Hunter at the start of the 20th century. Act 4 continues the story of Act 3, Life and Death, with the Deer Hunter, okay, and I'm just kind of quoting from like the wiki here, assuming the identity of his deceased half-brother at the conclusion of World War I. This album was followed by a very lengthy tour and represented career highs for the band, both in sales and chart placement. So, Andy, can you tell us a little bit, why was this album your pick?
Yeah, so I actually, I've been thinking about it ever since I picked it, and I do not remember how I even became aware of this band, what made me get this, because I did buy the CD back in the day. I have no idea what made me even give it a shot. I'm glad I did, because it opened up, they've got, I don't know how many recordings at this point, how many albums they've got, a ton. and they've all got gems on them.
I think all 6 of like the Deer Hunters saga, all 6 of those albums have been released at this point.
And then they've got the color series or something like that, which is another 3 albums that came out fairly recently in the 2020s, I think, or late 10s, I guess, 20 teens. So anyway, however I ended up finding it, this was the first album of theirs that I actually picked up, which of course is 4 albums into this saga. So I completely missed the backstory and all of that, and frankly didn't care. Because
it's not necessarily a like required thing, because I find with like these kind of serialized concept albums, there's usually a good one that's not the first one, and there's usually an aspect of these albums that doesn't sort of require it's not like randomly reading like the Game of Thrones books like out of order. You can kind of jump in now.
That's right. But so I just found it really interesting. It didn't sound like anything else I had been listening to up to that point. I have been a big Coheed and Cambria fan for a really long time, and I've kind of always tried to find I don't want to say similar bands to Coheed, but something that kind of made me feel in a similar way that Coheed makes me feel. And so I found this this band, this album, and it kind of gave me a similar. The music is not at all the same, but
Coheed being, I think, like a very obvious kind of like analog to this album, both in terms of just kind of like the variety in the album, the concept, and like the fact that part 4 is also like the best of the saga. I would assume, similar to everybody else, that for Coheed, Good Apollo is your favorite out of the bunch.
That's an interesting question. No, but so
really?
Okay.
Really?
So this is something that I was going to bring up about this album later on, but it's a perfect segue. So generally speaking, broad generalization, the first album of a band that I hear usually becomes my favorite of the albums from a given band.
Sure.
So the first album for Coheed that I saw that I listened to was No World for Tomorrow.
Which is 4.2, like that. Feathers was like the big kind of like single off that.
Yes. So I adore that album. It's the first one I ever picked up. In fact, I remember the first time I ever even listened to it. I was in a Barnes and Noble. This was or Borders or one of those back when they used to have those listening stations where you could go and listen to 5 or 6 different CDs that had come out. And I saw the cover of that album, and it was sort of like cartoon album art, not cartoon, but it was, drawn, and it just caught my eye. And I thought, oh, I don't know who these guys are. I'll give it a shot. Listened to it and was like, yeah, that's pretty good. And I kind of just put it away at that point. I didn't buy it until much later. Came back around, saw it again on, whatever, Apple Music or whatever Spotify or whatever it was at the time. Probably before that, it was probably like Napster, but whatever. Right. And was like, oh, I remember that album. I'm going to give it a shot again. And I listened to it again, and it was the right time in my life. It just hit at the right moment. And I adore that album. I absolutely love it. My favorite Coheed song is Gravemakers and Gunslingers, which is from that album. So anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent now about Coheed, which I could do for an hour. Right.
Although, particularly with this album, I think that's a very like obvious place to go.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Papa, what'd you think of this one?
So here's the thing: reviewing music is tough because everything, all different types of music, means something to different people in a different way. And I feel like when you judge somebody's music, it's kind of like, because it is so personal to them, it almost feels like a personal attack. And I'm prefacing this because it was tough for me to get through.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean that it's bad. There's definitely a lot of positive things about it. I think what it is the lead vocalist. I just can't get behind his voice. It reminds me of like theater kids that I knew in high school.
It's a very musical theater album. It's a very
the tone of his voice, and I hear it and I can't shake it. And so, and it's funny because I remember I I told John, I'm like, I don't know if I can get through this album, and I forced myself to do it. And the one song that I liked the most was called "King of Swords Reversed."
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I liked it is because it was upbeat, poppy, maybe kind of like an 80s sound to it, but I didn't hear the lead vocalist's voice come out as much as I do through most of the album. So I'm like, this one, that doesn't sound like what the rest of the album sounds like. I like this one.
Sure.
Totally. One of the notes that I wrote in my notebook as I went through it again was, quote, theater geek prog rock.
Yes. There you go.
So you're 100% right about that. Absolutely.
I only kind of learned this yesterday, sort of going through like the band's Wikipedia page, but it sounds like this guy got kicked out of his first band and has an almost completely different set of musicians on every album that he ends up kind of recording.
Oh, no way.
So kind of theater kid, musician, diva, whatever else. It's I completely get how Eric kind of how we kind of like caught those vibes. I was
gonna say like other things too. I think I said to you, John, I'm like, is this a Christian rock album? Like, what? I'm like, is Andy Christian? Am I gonna like step on somebody's toes if I bring it up? I'm like, hey, I love Creed, man. Creed is great.
Furthest thing from it, my friend. Furthest thing from it.
Power and the glory.
But I wrote down words like, I'm like, Christian rock, Broadway or a play. It does have a very
overproduced Jesuit thing. Yes.
Yeah, is this a Jesuit kind of thing? I just don't get it. It sounds kind of overproduced though. It has like a very like crisp, clean sound, like no room for like sounding rough or making mistakes or just kind of winging it. It sounds like they just went in the studio and they're like, we need the best version of this.
Very dialed in, very.
And so, like, I mean, but at the same time, like the song Waves, for example, I'm like, I've never heard it on the radio, but it sounds like something that could easily be on the radio or like in like a CW, like romantic teen comedy.
Fair.
Yeah.
All fair. Uh-huh. I don't have much to base on. It's all hearsay and stuff that I've read on the internet about the lead singer Casey, is that he's pretty difficult to work with. And again, if I'm wrong about this, I apologize. It's just what I've read. That he's one of those like sort of, I'm an artiste, and everything has to be just exactly right. Which is why
his name is Casey. His name is Casey. Yeah. Like
Casey.
What do you
Of course, his name.
Yeah.
Casey.
Yeah.
It was either going to be Casey or Trevor.
Trevor.
Yeah.
Trevor.
Trevor.
Okay.
So anyway, I totally get where you're coming from, Eric. John, I know that you are sort of a fan of this band.
I have a really interesting relationship with this band. I was legitimately surprised, Andy, when you picked this for like the episode, because this is just the Deer Hunter in general is a relatively obscure band. They have a ton of material. I was surprised to pick the Deer Hunter. I was surprised you picked this album from like the Deer Hunter. Very short version of kind of what happened to me. I when I was like working in New York back in sort of fall of 2016, I decided I had like a long weekend. I decided I was randomly going to take a trip to Austin to just kind of go and kind of try the food, check out like the local music scene. I stayed at a shitty motel. I caught a really terrible sinus infection by the air conditioning. I had a brutal head cold the entire week. And I had tickets to see the Deer Hunter at the Mohawk Outdoor Theater just outside of Congress Street in Austin. Walked out to Mohawk, had maybe the best veggie burger I've ever tasted in my life. Got to the show, watched 10 minutes of the Deer Hunter perform, and went, this is really great. I need to go back to the hotel, take some Sudafed, and like sleep for 20 hours. Just there's no possible way I was going to get through it. But I was kind of bummed out by that. But when I got back to the hotel, I decided let me kind of take a listen to the like the album they were actually touring, which was Act 4. Downloaded it, listened to it probably like kind of 5 times straight, like in the flight home. It's, to kind of Eric's point, it's pretty musical theater. It's a bit outside the kind of things I generally like. I still have the copy of it on my phone. I still listen to it from time to time. There are 4 tracks off of it that I deleted just years and years ago because they're a little bit too. it's a little too theater production but kind of out of what's left out of that. And again, not kind of my thing. I really dig this band. But I would also say, and I don't know if you guys kind of relate to this, or even if there's like a word for whatever else, but it's kind of one of those bands where I have one of their albums, and that's exactly how many albums I need by like this particular act. I don't know if it's kind of thing that makes sense.
I mean, I will say, yeah, there are some songs that sound similar, but there are also some songs that are just completely different. And for me, I think it was unexpected because I'm like, I'm going to force myself to listen to this, and then I'm like, that's kind of different. Like I think there's one song called "Remembered."
Yep.
Maybe it's like the 5th or 6th song, and it sounds like a Seal song. Like the
one of the ones
Seal.
I deleted off my copy of it.
Is it really the one that's just like?
Track 5, not there.
And I was like, oh, okay, wow, man. Seal. Bring Seal back.
That's an interesting comparison.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was gonna say Bittersweet 4 and 5 is another one that it sounds kind of like maybe it belongs in like a period piece or something, or it's like in like a Tim Burton movie or something.
Sure.
It's weird. Like I'm finding uses for the different songs, or maybe kind of where they belong. Such a mix.
The genre and thematic variety in this album, I think, is definitely like very impressive. It's just regardless of, I think, kind of personally how you feel about it, you can certainly kind of tell he has a lot of musical education, a lot of different ideas, and like a lot of kind of understanding of like different styles he's actually performing in.
I was just gonna say I will definitely say for me the first half of the album is, well, not even the first half. I'd say like the first 1, 2, 3, 4 of the first 6 are sort of like my favorite songs off of the album. It does dip a bit in the middle for me. So I wouldn't say that it's a perfect album from start to finish, but I think it's a very interesting listen if you don't mind musical theater, which I don't. So
let me ask you this though: when you listen to it, are you the same as John, where you're focused more on the lyrics than the actual music itself, or is it a combination? Or
it really depends from album to album, artist to artist. In this one, and this is the same thing with Coheed and Cambria, I have no idea what the hell they're talking about 99% of the time. I don't know where they come up with the stuff. I don't necessarily I'm not even necessarily able to follow the story.
This is an album about a guy imitating his dead half brother at the end of World War I. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. And I have to just kind of take him at his word that is in fact the case. But so in this case, it's I think with this one, it's the vibe more than anything else.
Okay.
The way that the Rebirth, which is the first song on the album, the way it starts off with sort of like a cappella, whatever, and then it moves into, I think the second song is The Old Haunt, which has this just anthemic, massive chorus, and then Waves is next. The first like 10 to 15 seconds of Waves gives me chills every time I listen to it, and I'm a sucker for like beach, water, ocean imagery in songs, which that one has in spades.
Personal favorite for me, Andy, is the 4th track at the end of the earth, the backing vocal of "Someday She'll Be Gone, Someday She'll Be Gone" always gives me peace. Yeah.
That's a great tune. Actually, you know what? That I would add that one to the list. But I also really like "A Night on the Town," which is song 6 I'm looking at here. Just horns, and it's got another huge chorus, and it's sort of Broadway-esque, and I don't know. Anyway,
I wrote that one down too.
Yeah.
So rejoining the pod, Naveen.
Naveen!
Hey, hello, back.
So we've only got like a little way in. We're covering the Deer Hunter right now. What'd you think about this one?
This one? Definitely on first listen, it was interesting. I was not expecting some of the stuff that came out. Definitely, the Broadway vibes that you guys have mentioned, I heard in there. Rebirth starting off with a little Oingo Boingo or Danny Elfman a la Pee-wee's Big Adventure or the first Beetlejuice
Sure.
kind of sound.
Yeah.
You mentioned Tim Burton as well, so I mean,
You can tell this guy knows a lot about Oingo Boingo.
yeah, and I mean Danny Elfman. That's just his his sound. Who did all those and kind of I don't know if it's genre bending or just putting in a lot of genres in this one album. You know, King of Swords just reminds me of an 80s type tune and things, but again, still the chorus is very Broadway-esque. But just the beginning opening of it just sounds very 80s style, pop kind of things. So it was pretty neat. I enjoyed listening to it. I may delve into some of their back catalog or recent catalogs to see what they are. But I just focus on this one and again, just focusing on the other three albums here to really get a good sense to be able to talk about it.
Andy, do you have a sense with this band of kind of what the implicit ranking is? Is this considered like the good Apollo of like the series? Is this the standard bearer, or are there other ones people sort of kind of placed in the firmament?
So this is definitely the most successful, I think, most highly regarded album certainly in the Acts albums. I might make an argument for Act 2 being this one's still my favorite, but I really like Act 2 a lot. It's very good. It's a little rawer, Eric, maybe, so that might be a little more to your taste. And then once they get into the Colors albums, and again, I think there's 3 of them, the album called, and I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong, Antimai, Antimai, which came out in like 2021 or 22, something like that, is also 22.
Yeah.
Also very good. But yeah, I think 4 is the one that really kind of takes the cake for most the Deer Hunter listeners, I think.
You got it.
Sweet. Something I want to mention too, I don't know why I thought about this when I was listening to the music, but in terms of like telling a story through song, it felt almost like this band. Have you ever listened to the Decemberists?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say this sounds like Decemberists, like adjacent or something.
Yeah, I can see that.
In terms of like really strong lyrics, and you're telling a story. And so while you might not be like enthused by like the song itself, it's the combination. I mean, the music, but like the music along with the vocals and the lyrics, everything kind of combines to create this own like self-contained kind of like story or journey that like you can enjoy on its own.
Right.
Yep.
With the Decemberists, I feel like the storytelling element, like the English major element, it's very forward in their music. It's very upfront.
Yep.
Oh, definitely. Colin Malloy. Yeah, he's all about that.
All right.
There's something about these sort of multi-album spanning, rock opera, world building, fantasy kind of things that fascinate me. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons why I like Coheed as well. And I like these guys. The whole idea of writing just one song seems intimidating to me. Writing a whole album seems like an impossible task. Writing 6 albums seems even more impossible. Writing 6 albums that all intertwine with one another and they tell, the progression of the same story. Like that is such a Herculean effort over the course of years.
You have to admire the ambition around it, if nothing
Absolutely.
else. Yeah.
Anybody that sets out and thinks that they can accomplish something like that, like I gotta give props to, because man, you gotta really, really think that you have something important to say. You really do.
Right.
I was gonna say I have a challenge for you.
Uh-oh.
You're talking about 6 albums, and it all kind of, I guess, connects or interconnects somehow, spanning over these albums. What if you did something like that with like t-shirt design?
Ooh, okay.
Pick a theme or a story or something like that you can tell through designs on t-shirts.
So you got to get like
t-shirts
100
like a
people
flip-book?
each wearing a different t-shirt, and then they have to run past the camera all really, really quickly. And you see like a guy riding a horse.
Isn't that an SNL episode where they've got the guy with the F and the C and the K and then
Yeah.
I thought so.
Come on, it's our new friend. Bring him to the front. Here I come, guys. No, get back. What's wrong with you?
Okay. Any other thoughts, or should we go on to Naveen's album?
Let's do it.
Let's see. Next up, we got the one jazz album, like out of the bunch. We have Ugetsu.
The one jazz album.
Sorry, did I have a tone? I didn't.
Dun, 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 dun.
Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Ugetsu. Now, this is the 12th live album by the band, recorded in 1963 at Birdland in New York City. The band had previously toured Japan and recorded a live album called First Flight to Tokyo at the Hibiya Public Hall. 2 tracks pay homage to this trip, the Cedar Walton composition Ugetsu, which means a rain moon in Japanese, and Wayne Shorter's On the Ginza. The album features Blakey, Walton, and Shorter on drums, piano, and tenor sax, with Fred Hubbard, Curtis Fuller, and Reggie Workman on trumpet, trombone, and double bass. All right, Naveen, why was this one a pick for you?
This one is just one of my favorite albums of all time.
Really? Okay.
It's just a great album. I was, in a jazz band in high school, and then I started my career in college, going through music education. And this is when I heard the album, was in that time in college, and it's just one of those albums that blew me away. Everybody loves Kind of Blue, which is a great album. I'm not saying it's anything bad, but it's just one of those albums that
it was kind of surprising, because it was just like, for like a jazz album, I figured like the pick would be Kind of Blue or Sketches in Spain or some Chet Barker, just Chet Baker, Charlie Parker, one of those. It just kind of like it. So is this among people that know jazz well, is Ugetsu and a well-known album?
Ugetsu is actually a really well-known album in that community. It's definitely one that's pretty popular amongst the community and things. I don't know how much commercial success it had, naming those albums that you mentioned and some of those artists that got a little bit more broader and more popular listening, clientele audience, I should say, popular.
The Jazz Messengers, I remember, had like 20 studio albums and like 30 live albums, and Art Blakey had like his own discography like on top of that. Like these guys produced created a lot of material like over the years.
Yeah, and it's pretty awesome. But the thing is, as well, to know about the Jazz Messengers is that it was kind of a revolving clientele. Sure. Art Blakey was the main guy, obviously, but every few albums, the horn section or the other parts of the rhythm section would be, they weren't like tossed out or quit, but they just moved on to other things. So he had to get new guys in, that kind of stuff. And if you kind of look back on it, it seemed more or less that Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers was kind of a school of some sorts. Freddie Hubbard and
constantly sort of like musicians constantly sort of rotating in and out of its orbit.
Right, but also that they get a lot of their beginnings from there. Like Wayne Shorter and Freddie Hubbard, big guys in the jazz world, but this was kind of their beginnings as they started gaining popularity and then moving on to their own and building up their own audience and stuff.
Would you say that the Jazz Messengers is sort of the digital underground of the jazz world?
Digital underground, like the Humpty Dance?
They showed up in Valkenvania. Are they going on the roller coaster, or is Dan Aykroyd going to let them go?
Just saying, Tupac got to start with
Tupac was there. You could, I guess, put that there, but I don't know. I would say the Art Blakey and Jazz Messengers got more into it than Digital Underground, because
did somebody have a red nose?
Yeah.
Inquirers need to know.
Yeah.
Did they all have messenger bags?
Jazz Messengers, their 13th live album was actually called Sex Packets.
Huh. Imagine that.
Nice.
All right.
So yeah.
So as a person who has studied jazz, and as a person who kind of like now teaches music, what are the musical elements of this album that really kind of make it exceptional or interesting?
I may be out of the ordinary, but to me, just at a listening level, it's just Great solos in there that don't go on, for forever. So they do play. Just the continuity of the songs in general from track to track. There, you've got songs that are just hard hitting and in your face kind of thing. You got songs that are ballads, and they're kind of intertwined in there. It's not like just one after the other, and it kind of creates a nice listening atmosphere to it. Little biased because Wayne Shorter, I'm a sax player, is what I did in college, and Wayne Shorter is one of my favorite sax players of all time, and he wrote quite a few of the songs on there. And just his style of writing jazz tunes, he does a lot with dynamics and volume in there. And right off the bat in the first song, starts off quiet and then it goes right in the middle of it. It gets loud, but then brings it back in. That's kind of a little bit of his MO with a lot of things. It's just it's just kind of neat putting that stuff in there again, as opposed to just always being a quiet ballad, slow thing or a loud in your face kind of tune. It's got very
when the album kicks off, you can immediately spot his technicals. You can immediately kind of spot his distinctive stylistic things that he would do with the instrument.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. I was going to say, I'm learning so much about you, by the way, which is amazing because I was also a jazz kid in high school. I also played saxophone.
Nice.
And they forced me to play baritone sax.
That
was the only way I could join Jazz One. And after trying to play baritone sax for a year, which every time they had a competition, they're like, we need a Barry solo. And I was like 5'2", trying to lift that thing. I had zero breath in my lungs. And they're like, louder. They can't hear you in the back. And I'm like, fucking quit. I can't. I'm done. I'm done. And so I quit and joined Jazz 2 and I played alto. And it was great because Jazz 2 was a ragtag group of maybe 6 of us. And we just kind of played whatever we wanted, which was great. So they're like, hey, we got concert for the school. And we just kind of went out there and our big song was called Splanky. You ever hear the song Splanky?
Sounds familiar, but I'm not too familiar with it.
Yeah. So it was very generic song, but we just go out, play solos, do whatever we wanted. But yeah, I'm totally a fan of this album, by the way. I was going to say, did you listen to...
I was going to say for Eric and Andy, kind of what are they?
Oh, yeah. Well, I just wanted to ask quickly, I didn't realize it was 10 tracks. There was a reissue. When they reissued this album on CD, they added 4 more tracks. It was a pretty recent reissue, like 2013. 2011 or something like that. So I listened to the 6-track version of it, and I thought it was a very solid album. And then I listened to the other 4 tracks, and I was like, kind of meanders there. But you're a fan of the original 6?
I'm going to look that up because I'm pretty sure I did the newest one, which has
all 10.
Yeah,
all 10. Yeah.
There's a very similar thing with I think Kind of Blue, which only has kind of 6 tracks on the original release, and it's a for me at least a sublime album, like front to back. And I not really being a jazz guy, it's not something I have like a ton of informed opinion on. But I know if you, depending on how you listen to Kind of Blue on YouTube, sometimes you'll end up with like the deluxe version, like an additional, like I said, 4 or 5 tracks like on top of it, and it just doesn't have the same efficiency, doesn't have like kind of the same kick, I guess.
I forgot, but where you still have that poster, by the way?
The poster that you would sing to every time you came back to visit from Japan?
Yes.
I had
that
my
poster.
First apartment after grad school. I had a Miles Davis poster up in my bathroom. And every time that Eric, I believe, was kind of living in Japan at that point, every time you come back to the States, I don't know whether this was a jet lag thing or just him being him. When he came to visit me, every time he would go into the bathroom and he would sing to the Miles Davis poster while he was
Dude, it's Kind of Blue. You walk in, you look at Kind of Blue, and I'd sit. I don't remember any.
You remember the song?
Every time I fudged it, and again, I was under the influence of something, and so I would be like, Miles Davis. At my party, Miles Davis, feeling shardy.
I remember
it would just go on
in my apartments Eric, I mean, this is a subdued performance. He was singing this at the top of his lungs, making sure that myself and a certain mutual friend of ours could just hear him at any point. And I remember just two of us sitting in the living room, we're trying to watch TV. We just hear Miles Davis, what a pro, Miles Davis, oh, don't you know? And our mutual friend looks at me and he just goes, "Tell me you don't miss him."
Yeah, John's downplaying, but it was like hours. Just
hours.
The door was not even locked, so somebody could have came in and just helped me out. You know, shut me up or just let me out of the bathroom. But no,
this is a long, dedicated 27-year-old shit. Like he had just all the time in the world. Then, Andy, what you think of this album?
I have a story for this album, and then I'll give you my.
You played jazz in high school. Let's hear it.
No, definitely not. Okay, so I tried listening to this album like the day after Naveen picked it. Okay. And I was sitting here at my desk doing some work, and I thought I'll put on some jazz music. It'll be, you know, I'm doing like Excel spreadsheeting or whatever other bullshit I have to do. And it's on. My wife is sitting right in that chair there doing her work. And she turns to me and she goes, "Are you on hold?" And I went, "No, this is Naveen's pick." So I pretty much immediately turned it off. Fast forward to this morning, okay? And I'm like, I got to listen to this album. I couldn't get to it. I couldn't do it. I got to listen to this album. So I said, okay, I'm going to power through this thing. I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to get through it. Okay. So I turned it on. I tend to like to turn on the music while I am taking a shower. I have a nice little speaker in my bathroom. I turn it on, you know, whatever. So I turn it on. I look up Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers on Apple Music, and it pulls up, you know, whatever, 12 different albums. None of them are Ugetsu. And I'm like, I know it's on here because I listened to it before. What am I missing? So I searched Ugetsu. Sure enough, it pops up. I'm like, okay, I don't know why it's not coming up under the Art Blakey name or whatever, but whatever, I found it. So I press play and I put my phone down. I get in my shower. I'm, you know, do whatever I'm doing. And song after song is playing. I tend to take a long shower when I'm trying to like absorb music. So I'm probably in there for 4 or 5 songs. Okay. I get out, whatever, and I have to go and do some other stuff. So I have to turn it off. I didn't quite make it through the full thing, but I'm like, I got a good taste of it and I'll finish it up when I get downstairs. So I go and I press the stop button on it and look and see that it is a song by somebody else entirely. It's not Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. I can't remember who it was. It was a name that I knew. It might actually have been Wayne Shorter now that you mentioned it. But it's somebody else entirely. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I don't think the album was, you know, 4 or 5 songs long. What am I missing here? So I look back, and what I had done was I had selected Ugetsu, the individual song from the album. And then it started playing jazz by whoever else was next in the playlist.
The algorithm took over.
Yeah, I had no idea that it wasn't all the same album. So I tell that story. And Naveen, this is why I said I needed you here. So this is what I wrote in my notes. I'm going to be totally honest. I don't understand jazz. I'm able to enjoy it, but it mostly just sounds like elevator music to me. Naveen, help me to understand why you love this album and why jazz is cool. Help me to get it. I just don't get it. And I want to. I love music. I genuinely love music. And I just can't access jazz. I can't do it.
Try to help Andy have a breakthrough in the 6 minutes we have remaining on this segment.
By the way, Andy was in the shower shaking and he's going, "It's World War I. It's World War I. Your brother. He's your brother."
Right.
Andy, when he pulled up YouTube, accidentally chose Eric Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. And just the shower just starts going, "Miles Davis."
Miles Davis, check your back. Miles Davis, pick up that slack.
I was so annoyed that I had listened to jazz music that I didn't have to listen to. I was so annoyed.
Oh.
Anyway, So
I'm
Naveen,
going to play the moderated card here. I think this would be a fascinating conversation for like a longer segment.
Okay.
We should do like in a future Rebels. Yes, I'm going to make a
Fair
note
enough.
right now.
Fair enough.
I want to
Andy,
hear the rebuttal
Dave.
from Naveen.
Hmm.
I feel like it's just building up, and he's just like,
Uh-huh.
son of a bitch.
I tried.
When is he
Naveen.
gonna
I'm
stop?
sorry, buddy.
So I can just.
Mhm.
I love you, man. I love you, but I just I couldn't.
He's
do
looking
it.
for a hug. Don't give him a hug.
No, I look. Music is subjective. You like what you like, and I mean, there's two different frames you can look at it. You can look at it as just as a listener, and if it says something to you without having words and it sounds good, cool. Or you can go with the jazz world stuff and the educated ones that are like, wow, that solo really went well with these chords and things and how that sounded. But I mean, you just got to start somewhere. I mean, I'm not going to force you to listen to jazz music and things. It's not your thing. It's not your thing. I try not to listen to hip hop, rap music too much. It's just not my thing because it doesn't do anything for me.
That's why we didn't get Naveen on the Valkenvania. That's why his brother had to tag in.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Naveen, you can just answer by saying, "Look, Andy, I prefer Deer Hunter with 2 E's instead of an E and an A."
Mm,
Deer Hunter with 2 E's is an objectively terrible band. I'm just gonna say that.
interesting.
Fight me in the comments.
I'll just kind of comment like super quickly, like on kind of mine. I dug this album, but like jazz is something I kind of more listen to ambiently. I just I like kind of like the vibe and the mood for it. I like it when I'm kind of cleaning up or kind of cooking or like anything else like this. And this was a really kind of fun, kind of mood setting, chill album to kind of just sort of float through as I was kind of working in the kitchen when I listened to it. The thing that really kind of fascinates me is that I kind of mentioned in the intro, but they 2 albums prior, they had this live album called First Flight to Tokyo. This was recorded in a like a tour of Japan that they did back in kind of 1961, and I just kind of like to sort of think about just what a cool experience kind of that must have been to kind of been a jazz band from that era, and then be able to kind of just go out to Japan at a point where the country is just first kind of discovering this music. Interesting thing about the First Flight to Tokyo album is recorded at a place called like Hibiya Public Hall. I worked very, very close to Hibiya when I was out in Japan. Hibiya Park is it's a little bit south of the Imperial Palace. It's a place I would very frequently walk to. I would very frequently walk through during lunch because it has, for my money, one of like the most just stunning set of kind of outdoor theaters and gardens and water fixtures in pretty much like the entire city. It's a spot that it's a little area of the city that really kind of has a place in my heart. So when I saw Hibiya Public Hall, I just had like this kind of thought like in the back of my head. Hibiya Park, green, expansive, beautiful. The southwest corner of it, there's this weird fucking building that looks like, for Andy and Eric, if you've ever been to like the boarded up parts of like the Worcester Sanitarium near UMass Memorial, it's a building that kind of looks like that, like a place that just looks just haunted as fuck. Like this looks like a Resident Evil level. And I kind of had in the back of my head, I'm like, I bet that's actually where the Jazz Messengers actually recorded that live album. And I looked it up. I guess the place has kind of been sort of shut down for years. They don't really have anything specific they're going to do with it. But that, I guess, was one like the city's kind of major kind of like sort of international kind of jazz venues like back in the day.
I mean, John, the album's called Ugetsu, which translates to fantasy. So
fantasy.
That is pure fantasy.
Could not be confirmed.
It doesn't mean fantasy.
It does not mean fantasy.
It's a joke. It does not mean fantasy at all.
It means being unable to see the harvest moon because of rain. Is like the
something
most
like that. It's from some book called Ugetsu Monogatari, which means Tales of Moonlight and Rain. I don't need to know that. I don't need to repeat that.
Right.
It's not fantasy.
Great song. You do not call it the Ginza.
Great song.
You just call it Ginza.
To tie it in with Japan, by the way, This album I will listen to again, and the reason is because I was a big fan back in the day of Murakami Haruki books, and he introduced me, and maybe John as well, to boiling spaghetti while listening to jazz music.
Oh, there we go.
It just goes really well together. I don't know why.
Right. Huh. I may have actually been making pasta when I listened to this one the first time.
Making pasta and listening to jazz. I always put jazz on when I'm cooking usually.
Maybe that's what I'm missing.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to make more pasta.
You gotta have upbeat jazz though. You can't have like slow kind of something to kind of keep it going. So you're in the cooking, it's frantic. You add to it with all these different horns and saxophones and stuff.
It's also got to be like a quick pasta. It can't be like a 4-hour ragu. Like
right. And then when you eat the pasta and you get like a whiskey or something, you're taking it easy. It's been a long day. You got some slow jazz.
All right.
It serves a purpose.
All right.
Oz Davis. All right. So good recommendation, Naveen. This one was, I really enjoyed this one a lot. Okay. Cool. Moving on, we got Eric, the Built to Spill, There Is No Enemy. Now none
of you are my enemy. There is no enemy. That's what I wanted to say.
It's the bare minimum we want.
Review. Let me see who's the enemy.
Yeah. One of you's the enemy. I won't say until the end of this episode.
How did the pod just turn into a werewolf? I'm very confused. All
right, close your eyes, guys.
And everybody logs off. All right, There Is No Enemy is the 7th studio album by Boise indie rock band Built to Spill. Released in 2009, it features band creator and frontman Doug March on vocals and guitar, with Scott Plouffe on drums and backing guitars by Brett Nelson and Jim Roth. Members of Quasi, Tree People, and the Butthole Surfers also make appearances on the album's 11 tracks. There Is No Enemy was met with critical praise when it was released. Pitchfork called it the band's best effort of the 2000s, saying, quote, "It rings with a powerful truth and produces some very real goosebumps." So, Eric, why was this your pick?
So, I want to say about 2007, I had been working in Japan for the previous 3 years, and I started to really get into indie music. When I came back 2007, I just went and bought a bunch of indie CDs, and this happened to be one of the albums I picked up, I think 2009, was it? Around the time it came out. I had seen it at, from what I probably remember, is Best Buy. And I saw the album art and I was like, that's really weird and different. And it reminded me of like Flaming Lips.
Sure.
It's just something about the artwork just called to me. So I went and got it. And it's one of those things that I listened to. And right away I started thinking of like Modest Mouse. I'm like, this sounds familiar. It sounds like other stuff I already listened to. And then I realized as I listened to it more and more, and then I looked it up online, there was a lot of bands that have actually been influenced by Built to Spill, and apparently they've been around for a while now.
Like their stuff was in the 90s, according to the Pitchfork article.
Yeah, exactly. They were like a 90s band that nobody really paid attention to. And they influenced bands like Modest Mouse, The Strokes, Death Cab for Cutie, like a bunch of different like indie bands. And so I thought it was cool just how they have a unique sound and something about it. I don't know. It was also like a song I played in steady rotation in my car. So I just got used to it after a while. It's the same thing with Wilco. Wilco is not for everybody, and it has different kinds of like poppy, experimental elements, like some kind of like some rock sounds to it, but like country almost. It's something that after you listen to it for a while, it kind of grows on you. And that's kind of what this album was for me. I think the first track, though, was what hooked me instantly, because I heard that and it was loud and it said, "Listen to me." And I was like, okay.
It's got a truly unusual kind of opening riff when you go in. You almost feel like you're listening to like a King Crimson CD.
So that's kind of where I fell with it. I actually don't have any of their other albums. People always talk about their first one being their best one, and I've tried to listen to it. I love the first track, and then after that, it's just kind of it feels kind of like 90s, like it could be anything from that time. So I just never go back and listen to it. But for some reason, this one just this is where I stopped.
Right on. Is it a bit of a like kind of a thing for you? What I was talking about earlier with the Deer Hunter of just like certain bands just have this vibe of kind of like I really like this album. For me, also like kind of bands like Nick Drake or Silver Sun Pickups, especially, are like amazing singular album. I don't need to listen to anything else kind of by them. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case for Built to Spill. I heard each of their albums, they attempt to do different things, and they produce new, unique sounds. Sometimes they work, sometimes they're kind of like an exhausted effort of something they've previously put out. But people seem to love different albums of theirs. The one I picked is considered maybe a sleeper hit, but not everybody agrees because it does have some sad elements to it. I mean, there's one song which is considered the most rock song about suicide. So
which track?
It's called Pat.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's just got like a lot of different things kind of buried in there. And then I noticed too, whenever I listen to it, I can't really hear all the lyrics of the vocalist. His voice kind of drones on, but things kind of come to the surface that kind of like, just settle in my brain. And then that's always what kind of, it's like how I told you before. It's like when I listen to music, I'm not focused so much on the lyrics, but what I get out of it and whatever the song gives to me is kind of what makes me keep coming back to it. And so usually on how I'm feeling at a certain time, I might need this one thing to, to correct where I am mentally. And it just seems to work.
Yes. Andy,
I need help, guys.
Andy, Naveen, what do you guys think about this one?
I really enjoyed the music. I didn't love the singer's voice. I don't know if it was just the way that it was, there was a ton of reverb on it, or it was super compressed, or I don't know really what it was about the voice. That being said, though, it did grow on me. And I would say I ranked the album 7 out of 10.
Wow.
I'm a tough sell on music. I'm a really tough sell on music. And that's not to say that I think my musical taste is impeccable. I just like what I like. I would give this album another listen, and I would give their other stuff a chance as well. I'm not a big indie music fan to begin with. It's not really my thing. I like some of it, but I can't say that I like all of it. But I will say, for me, the standout is the band of this band. Yeah. They are fantastic.
I would imagine this would be a phenomenal group to see live.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. After just hearing this album, I would pay to see them live just so I could hear that band. A couple of the things that I mentioned just in my notes going through, the guitar tones throughout are just superb. I mean, crisp and like well recorded, and they're just so good. I love a trumpet, so that helps. So ultimately I would say I enjoyed this album way more than I thought I was going to. I went into it thinking it was going to be kind of boring, frankly, because that's sort of how I look at a lot of indie music, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised by it.
I feel like the aughts, sub pop, Shins, and everything kind of Shins adjacent thing.
The note that I made, and you say the Shins, which is exactly right. I said the first half of the album sounds like Garden State to me. Which is
totally fair.
Yeah. And I liked I liked the movie, and I liked the soundtrack. This just sort of put me in mind of that same kind of stuff.
I like the soundtrack. I fucking despise that movie. Just let's put on some garbage bags and scream into scream off a cliff.
Look at this shithead with that shirt that has the design that matches like his parents' bathroom wall.
That is a completely fair criticism of that movie.
It takes a lot for me to hate Natalie Portman, but I was right there up front with it. Naveen, what'd you think of this one?
It's a good album. Everybody kind of said everything that I was probably going to say. One, I did find his voice to be kind of monotone the way they record it and things, not necessarily in terms of notes, but just in emotion. It kind of just felt stale. Although, was a really good one, and Pat was a really good one that you had mentioned. Those were kind of my favorites for this album. Even the beginning track 2, the Aisle 13, I should say, that track as well. Yeah. What I really liked as well. So it's really cool. This one, I would say, though, lyrically, would probably be the best out of all of them. Just I felt it was more poetic there. In hindsight, it's just one that hits me every time I hear it, and I end up hearing it. Was the "Is the grass always greener because it's fake?" It's kind of like.
Well,
really like that line.
There was a lyric that really hit for me. It was "Get out of my nightmares, get out of my dreams. You're not even welcome in my memories." That's
yeah.
That's
actually gonna say, "Get into my car."
Get out of my dreams and my car.
Yeah, and then there's another one. I can't remember. I don't know what the song it was, but it was something about why can't my brain cells let me sleep or leave me be, kind of thing, which I thought was really, really neat. And definitely, as Johnny had mentioned, going there. Again, indie music is not one of my go-tos, or big fan of it, but it's definitely a band that I think they always seem to sound better live than they do recorded, and I would definitely go see them live.
I feel like this band would probably have like amazing jam chops. It would be like, it's kind of in a category of band where, they put out a studio thing every few years, but you kind of really go to see them sing the first few verses of like a song, and then do something kind of transcendental and kind of cosmic for like the next 20 minutes.
Sure. Yeah.
I really liked it. I think the first half's like a little bit on the sleepier side, but I think it picks up quite a bit with "Life's a Dream." Andy, to your comment about the guitar tones, there is an instrumental breakdown at the end of the "Life's a Dream" track that just gave me shivers every time I listened to it. It was really, really good. I liked "Done" quite a bit. I just had like really good time. A thing that was kind of just chewing on the back of my brain as I was listening to his voice, and Eric, maybe you can help me out with this. Who does this guy sound identical to? I kept going back to Wayne Coyne. I started thinking like a little bit kind of maybe My Morning Jacket. I started thinking maybe a little bit kind of like other indie bands, but there was and if I'm just making this up, I'm making this up, but this guy sounds identical to one other kind of contemporary.
I don't, and that's the thing. I hear every time I think of the band, I think of Modest Mouse.
Sure.
I don't know why. I'm like, hey, I just listened to that album, and then I'm like, all right, already. and I'm like, no, that's a different band. But that's a tough thing. It's just like, what he's doing, it's clearly intentional, because when you listen to his other albums, he's a lot clearer. So that's why I'm like, he made purposely made a choice here, and it might be because he's exposing so much of himself that he's trying to reserve a little of it without, just giving away the full game. But yeah, he sounds. I was like, maybe
it's not even fairly the lyric.
I don't even know.
It just sounds like this somebody else that it was kind of driving me nuts like a little bit. That's kind of neither here.
Really? Yeah. I don't know.
No, I just but I really dug it. I'm going to probably take a walk later and kind of like listen to it one more time. The only thing that I wrote down when I was like listening to the album the first time was "Sweetie, we have Porcupine Tree at home," but that's kind of like neither here nor there.
Is that something you overheard somebody say?
No, this is just. Do you guys know Porcupine Tree at all?
No.
A very, very similar band to this, kind of like a really kind of like a good analog.
Oh, okay.
Is that the one you usually like kind of go into the bathroom and be like, Miles Davis
on the sofa, Miles Davis.
Don't sit up.
Eric has been trying to record for decades. I don't know. There's a Canadian band, so there's a weird question of jurisdiction. It's just keep fighting the good fight, my friend.
Guys, just get the poster and invite me over. We'll see what happens.
It has to be that specific poster.
What's that?
Has to be that specific poster.
Kind of blue. I need kind of blue.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
It's on the list.
No, I don't want any lighting in your bathroom. Remove the light bulb. Just have the poster.
Right.
I'll make it happen.
Or just have Eric go into
like
a dark bathroom and just be like, "Trust me, the poster's in there."
Yeah. It's there, or maybe it's not.
Okay, and fun album. Like I had a good time with this one.
Yeah.
All right, wrapping up. This was my pick. The little indie band. Maybe you've heard of them. The Rolling Stones. Let It Bleed. Now this is the Stones' 8th studio album. It was released in 1969, debuting at #1 in the UK charts and #3 at the US. The creation of Let It Bleed was marred by the tragic death of band founder Brian Jones from drug overdose. Surprise, surprise. Jones was replaced by Mick Taylor on slide and electric guitar for the remainder of the album. The album did not have any, at the time of its release, high-charting individual singles, which is like a little surprising, but introduced staple Rolling Stone songs, Give Me Shelter, and You Can't Always Get What You Want. It is currently certified double platinum in the US with over 2 million copies sold and appears on many rankings for one of the best just all-time rock albums like ever released. Why to pick this one? From the conversation haven't, of course, show when we kind of talked Almost Famous, when we talked sort of previous album reviews, a big just soapbox thing for me is always listen to the whole album, like front to back, because if you buy something and you're only kind of listening to radio hits, you don't know whether there might be something more creative or interesting or complex or just kind of weird on the album. But just for me, my favorites are always the ones that kind of nobody kind of tells you about.
Can I guess what your favorite song is on the album?
Please.
Ooh.
I think it's Live With Me. Because when I listen to the album, it sounds like one of those raw, dull adult fiction short stories that you keep recommending us to read. So it's a little weird, a little filthy,
all right,
a little strange. I'm like, this has to be it.
I'm going to I do have a little story about that song, but let's discuss it.
You nailed it.
There it is.
Yeah. Off pod for that one. Yeah, I just I don't know really kind of a ton about the Stones, but it's one of these weird things of the albums that I do know and listen to, Exile on Main Street and Sticky Fingers being the other two. They're just fucking great. I love the originality. I love the composition of these songs. I love the absurd dirtiness of some the songs and ideas and lyrics that they have. And this was a running song for me for years and years. I think I mentioned on the pod I'm trying to train back up to a 5K. And when we decided to do this episode, I made this album pick. This album front to back was the first thing that I kind of listened to when I kind of went out running, and still works, still keeps me kind of motivated and kind of jazzed up. So yeah,
I didn't know you were a Stones fan. I really didn't see this coming at all. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but this one surprised me. I'm like, Stones, John.
I immediately thought it was an incredibly safe pick on John's part.
I think that's fair.
I think it was a cop out.
Little indie band, you kind of get ganked.
This album sucks.
Right.
Great album. I mean, great and great band. I've always been more on the Beatles side than the Stones side. If I had to pick the greatest band of all time,
which is famously the division between the two.
It is.
Yeah.
I've always been on the Beatles side. I do like the Stones. I can't say that in fact, I'm not sure I've ever listened to one of their albums front to back, start to finish. I've heard a ton of their music, but I don't know that I've ever sat down and done that exercise. It's a really solid album. It's got, some true real Stones classics, interspersed with what I guess what I would call more generic Stones tunes. And I don't mean that to sound negative, just, oh, that's a song, you listen to it and go, yeah, that's the Stones. That's what the Stones sound like. But there's some great songs on there that I'm not as familiar with that definitely perked my ears up. I mean, first of all, I didn't realize Honky Tonk Women, which is the one that everybody knows from the radio, was done as a country hit on this one, or a country song, which is Country Honk. Honky Tonk Women is better, but Country Honk was still pretty cool.
Strong disagree personally, but everybody's allowed their opinion on that.
Totally fair. I did not know that the lyrics of "Let It Bleed" were so horny. I had no idea.
Roald Dahl wrote them.
That's wild.
That was, and for me, Midnight Rambler, definitely my favorite song on the album. Absolutely should have been a massive hit, much bigger than it was, and I don't understand why it didn't.
Because in 1969, if they had tried to put that song on the radio, people would have been guillotined.
Perhaps. But that song is just magnificent. Loved it.
I was back at the farm kind of earlier this year, and my uncle Andy has this vinyl collection of something like 10,000 LPs and about 30 or so thousand EPs, and just like this amazing kind of old school sort of stereo setup. And I kind of put out to him, like, there's a couple individual tracks on some albums I would love to listen to, and Midnight Rambler was one of the choices. I want to hear that on vinyl, on like in a real sort of proper like old school hi-fi.
Yeah, it's great. Mental songwriting note: if you run out of lyrics, just keep repeating the same thing over and over again, and then fade out the track, and you can also be one of the most influential rock bands of all time.
No, there we go.
Wow,
so just throwing that out there. Yeah. I didn't realize that was the formula, but apparently it works.
Naveen, what'd you think?
It's in the same boat as kind of Andy. I know a lot of their songs and things, but I never actually listened to an album. So it was kind of great to listen to an album of theirs. Interesting album to choose as well. I would have to say, there are many singers that don't have great voices, but they work. Billy Corgan is not a great singer, but it works.
And Anthony Kiedis has about an 8-note range, probably. But
right, Tom Petty. People say Tom Petty's quite whiny, but for me, it works. I like Tom Petty, and but I'd have to say, Mick Jagger works for this, but I had a lot of trouble with Country Honk and Love in Vain. I couldn't stand his whiny voice. It was just like he went.
Really interesting.
He just went for it and just like, I'm gonna be more whiny than I could ever be, as opposed to just kind of singing these songs. And so those ones kind of annoyed me.
So "Love in Vain," I believe, is the only non-original Stones song. That's a Robert Johnson cover, I believe.
Gotcha. But overall, it was good. It was a very bluesy album, I think, and bluesy in the way, like going back to Love in Vain and Country Honk. Those songs kind of remind me of like early 1900s Southern blues, sitting on the porch kind of thing, and then other songs are just kind of straight up bluesy kind of tunes, and which is kind of neat. You brought up Midnight Rambler. That was just awesome when. There's got this bluesy swinging
guitar, kind of just like the breakdown towards the end, and
then all of a sudden, right in the middle, he changes his drum beat to a rock drum beat, and it becomes a rock song. You're just like, whoa! It was really neat. And Monkey Man was just kind of fun with just yelling out Monkey Man, and but it was a good listen, and I did just real quick listen to a couple tracks off their EP or whatever they had, like one of their first things earlier, and it was just odd. That was just like a straight up Chuck Berry style rock thing, and you're just like, whoa.
This being their 8th album, like this was kind of a return to form for them, because I think they had kind of started as like a primarily sort of blues act, became more commercial, became kind of more rock like oriented, and this is them kind of like after about like a decade or so, they had made their money at this point, so this is kind of them rotating back around.
I was gonna say, how many other bands were doing that at the time? Like the Doors did blues, and like Led Zeppelin.
Right.
I want to call something out that I read on Wikipedia about this. John, you mentioned that their original, basically the founding member, Brian Jones, passed away from an overdose. Quoting Wikipedia, Brian Jones was fired from the band during the recording of Let It Bleed, having performed on only 2 tracks, playing auto harp on You Get the Silver and percussion on Midnight Rambler. A month after being fired, Jones was found at the bottom of his swimming pool at his home. The coroner's report stated this was a drowning, later revised to, quote, death by misadventure, which I thought was was an amazing way to put it. So I had to look up what that meant.
Uh-huh.
So I went to another Wikipedia page, death by misadventure. In the United Kingdom, death by misadventure is the recorded manner of death for an accidental death caused by a risk taken voluntarily. Part of me wished I had not looked it up because I really just like death by misadventure. It just leaves all kinds of,
like you're reading a choose your own adventure book and you just make the wrong choice.
Could have been anything. What were you doing in that pool, man? But I like the idea that it was by a risk taken voluntarily, whatever that means.
Very, I mean, this we're the least sort of like appropriate to qualify people to say this, but some real British shit right there. I would
say, guys, as I said before, just because you find a hole doesn't mean you should put something inside it. Especially when you're underwater.
Wait, can you I'm writing that down.
Put that on your t-shirt, Andy.
Doesn't mean you should.
What's this hole for? Ooh, it's sucky.
Ooh, this hole's very sucky.
Papa, what'd you think of this one?
I liked it. It's Rolling Stones. What do you want me to say?
Exactly.
I'm more like I'm a Sticky Fingers guy. I was more into Sticky Fingers. That's the album I had that I would listen to. Fear, Wild Horses, The Roller Coaster. It all comes back to me. It's a full circle. This album, I mean, songs. Gimme Shelter is a great song. Country Honk. I like Naveen mentioned Monkey Man. I also I'd never listened to this before, but You Got Silver. It sounds like Bob Dylan, like
that's actually
vocals.
Keith Richards singing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was gonna say the vocals sounded so off, and I'm like, is this Dylan or is somebody's channeling Dylan? It had the slide guitar.
There's a very limited re-release of this album where Mick does like the vocal tracks on it.
Okay,
and it's a massively popular, almost like impossible to find.
Really,
it's got people kind of feel it's if there's any kind of low point on the album, it's probably that one.
The thing that just shit on my listening of the album was the very last song, which is You Can't Always Get What You Want, and all I could think of was fucking Donald Trump rally. And then I'm just like, I will never get this song back. Like, it's gone. All I think about when I listen to it is I'm like, Donald Trump is like the consolation prize no one deserves. What a fitting song.
Right.
Nice.
That you might be able to recover the song for you if Guar just walked out and sort of just cut out the front of his torso, like that might. Yeah. Sorry you weren't here for the Beans. I'm sorry that you weren't here for the Guar concert report because it was.
That's right. I'll be listening to it.
Yeah,
bring in Mark.
That to me, that song is just tremendously overplayed.
Really is. It seriously is.
But it's a wonderful piece of music. It's an amazing song, but it is so overplayed.
Yeah. I feel like, I don't know if it was always a hit, but I feel like somebody discovered it and they're like, so true. And then it just, by word of mouth or whatever, just spread.
Well, the funny thing to read about this is like there were no particularly like popular singles when this kind of came out at the time, and "Gimme Shelter" and "You Can't Always Get What You Want" sort of just they both rose to prominence, not as part of like the album, but as part of their catalog, and sort of very, very gradually.
This, I was thinking about it, that this album seemed, for lack of better words, just ahead of its time for that 60s era kind of rock music, if you're looking for that rock music, but it wasn't that straight up rock music that you're getting. So it seemed definitely out there in terms of what the big hits and popularity of that time.
Maybe it wasn't the kind of thing that people were looking for out of the Stones at that time. I think that's well said, Naveen. I think you're probably right.
There are also 8 albums out at like this point.
I was going to say, let's mix it up. Do something different.
I agree.
Chances.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, these types of random albums that bands will drop are sometimes the most fun, the most different, the most interesting 100%. Ones. Yeah. So, Anyway, sorry, Johnny, I interrupted.
I mentioned earlier listening to Midnight Rambler at my Uncle Andy's place, and I was also, he had the one of like the original print vinyls. I was kind of flipping through, and a thing that really cracked me up is when you open like the vinyl up, you can see the list of kind of credits for who performed and who produced the album. So you see, just singer and guitarist and drummer and the people who do the mixing and like the album artwork and sort of production design, like, and everything else. And then in the credits, there's one guy that's credited for it just says T in sympathy, and then provided by, in quotes, Jock. There's no other explanation. T in sympathy, Jock.
Interesting.
So I'm looking at this. I'm like, yeah, they had, I guess, such a good drug dealer. They just felt like they had to give him a shout out.
They're French drug dealer. And Jacques. This one's for Jacques. Guys, I get the best shit.
Yeah. Probably not with us anymore. Probably death by misadventure or just some other fun.
Definitely.
Okay, voluntary.
Maybe he got stuck in a bathroom with a poster of Miles Davis. Somebody took the light out and he couldn't escape.
Yeah.
That kind of brings us back to our.
It's the worst kind of misadventure.
Mm.
One of the episodes we had about the albums and stuff, just in general. Missing those liner notes, and now you have to go research things digital.
It's an experience that people don't get to have anymore. It's really kind of sad.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like that, not just like the artwork, but like these occasional sort of kind of crazy inside jokes, or just details that add a little more history or context, or just like a little extra bit of like a little extra sort of additional kind of piece of interest on top of everything else.
Yep.
Yeah. The only other kind of Rolling Stones thing I'll kind of mention, it's not related to this album, but just one of my favorite responses to like just a question to like a rock star ever is a few years later, I think it was like 1980, the Stones released an album called Some Girls, and they were interviewing Keith Richards, and they asked him, so why did you call this album Some Girls? And Keith Richards goes, because we couldn't remember their fucking names.
Yeah. Keith Richards can't remember a lot of things. Let's be honest.
Or perfect photographic everything. He released like an 800-page autobiography.
Yeah.
Did he really? Did he
Wow.
Stephen King it in? I wrote it. I don't know who wrote it.
There's a whole middle section about the Tommyknockers. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So guys, that was fun. That was Rebels Yell, our album review show. So any other closing thoughts?
Just to the listeners, please share. Oh, I can't believe I'm going to say this. Please make sure to let us know if you want more Rebels Yell. Oh God, Naveen, edit that out.
Guys, he's opening up for GWAR next month, so get ready.
Just watch.
Naveen cut everything out except like the GWAR report.
Yeah.
I'm coming for Blothar's job as lead singer of GWAR.
Nice.
I'm bringing my white T-shirt.
Yep.
Piss on me.
I saw the text from you guys. They're playing at the Paradise.
Yeah,
That's
You have to
insane.
see GWAR at the
Paradise Rock.
Paradise.
It's not
You
a huge
have to
venue.
see GWAR at
it's not
the
a big
Paradise.
venue at all.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You will definitely get like shit and blood and piss all over you.
Yeah.
Like you will be a mess.
Yep.
Look out for the bile driver.
Bile driver. I'm gonna get a white hoodie. I'm gonna get all Zwarzum on it.
Spirit of the 60s.
I'm gonna keep pushing it. It's gonna become a thing. Guys, check out this
Zwarzum.
Zwarzum. Zwarzum.
Okay, so just challenge to Eric, who does not mind standing in line for like kind of merch for hours on end. If you go to the GWAR show, will you pick me up the GWAR board game? Can you do this?
You're serious? Really?
100%.
They have a GWAR board game?
They had a GWAR board
Donnie,
game.
I'll do it for Donnie.
But I'm like, I just got rid of a bunch of board games. I'm like, I cannot let myself relapse. I've been thinking about the GWAR board game ever since.
I didn't believe you. Apparently, this is a real thing.
This is 100% a real
I am shocked you didn't get it.
Yeah.
I would not. I just hate standing in lines.
How does it play? What is it similar to? Is it like Sorry or something?
You
or
get like a little Ethan Embry miniature that you can kind of drop in the galaxy worm.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know anything. It exists. How
It's
else?
like one of those remember those rubber snake things that you could get as a kit or something. You can put your
sure,
finger
sure.
in, you can slide them along. Is it like that? And then that's like the maggot or whatever.
Mhm.
And then you just
The world maggot.
yeah, you just suck up the Ethan Embry, and then he never comes back.
Coming
It's a
attractions.
tactile version of Cards Against Humanity.
Coming attractions next week. Very exciting. We have our special Halloween episode where we will be in one form or another watching and reviewing George Romero's anthology horror film that he co-wrote with Stephen King, Creep Show. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. And then we'll sort of in November get back to our rotation of kind of watching movies around a particular theme, with occasional sort of break up of kind of random formats like this. Starting in November, we're going to be doing 4 mockumentary films. Stay tuned for like more details. And I think that's all we have.
Woohoo!
Anything else, gentlemen?
Thank you. No, I'm good to go.
Nope.
Thanks to everybody.
Thank you.
Yep.